We're live.
I'm going to call the Planning Board and Zoning Commission meeting to order for January 22nd, 2025. Can I have a roll call, Greg?
Yes. Bloomer,
Here.
Di Benedetto,
Here.
Whistler,
Here.
Boise,
Here.
Eccles Bell, Conley,
Here.
Gray.
Here.
All right, thanks, Greg. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes with one amendment. On page 2, old business A, towards the bottom, it says WWC to provide final draft of planning board members by January 17th, which I think that was the 22nd, but maybe it was the 17th.
It was the 17th because I wanted it earlier before. I wanted the planning board to get it in advance of the meeting.
Okay, so I move to approve them as written.
Any, is there a second?
Second.
Sue seconded. Is there any discussion? Any further discussion on the minutes? If not, then can I have a vote, Greg?
Gray,
Nope.
let it know.
Oh, excuse me, approved, yes, sorry. I thought yes.
Conley,
Yes.
Eccles Bell, Boise,
Yes.
Whistler,
Yes.
Di Benedetto,
Yes.
Bloomer,
Yes.
All right. I guess for those in the audience, both online and here, I forgot to kind of just give a rundown on what the agenda is for tonight. The primary item for business is old business, which is review of the final draft growth policy, of which WWC Engineering and Greg in this case will kind of lead the discussion on that. So next item on the agenda is communications from the board and council, and I'll kind of lead off with a review of the Urban Renewal Agency update and a couple items I wanted to bring forward. One was there's going to be a walking tour of the Urban Renewal District on February 3rd. Meet here at 5:30, and then we'll make our way to the Urban Renewal District and do a walkabout to kind of get a look at what some of the properties look like and give people an opportunity. And anybody in the public is welcome to join on that walking tour. And then the next regular meeting is February 10th, and item on the agenda for that is to kind of discuss the observations during the walking tour, report on the Senate bill impacting tax increment finance districts, and then proceed to old business, which is a continuation discussion with getting assistance from Kansas State University Technical Assistance Brownfields Program, and they gave us a pretty good presentation and background in terms of what kinds of services they can provide to facilitate moving forward with a design and review of our urban renewal district and some possible funding opportunities. A couple of key takeaways from that discussion was having some community meetings to develop some idea of vision and goals for the URD. Another item or tool that they discussed they could produce is generate some renderings of what that future might look like in terms of the URD. Some 3D renderings that allow us to sort of visualize what our vision and goals might look like as things proceed through development. And then the other item was to assess and inventory any potential ground contamination that would require brownfield mitigation. So those are the kind of the main topics that were discussed at the last meeting, and that discussion will continue on the February 10th meeting. Any questions about that?
Jeff, this is Angela. I thought the walkabout was at 3 o'clock on February 3rd.
That is what we have posted online and at the post office as well.
Okay, my mistake.
No, no worries. I just wanted to make sure that we were.
Yeah, I should look at the agenda. It says 3 p.m. Good catch, Angela, thanks.
I wondered why we were gonna go walking at 5:30 in the evening in the middle of winter.
Sandy, do you have anything from City Council?
City Council did some reappointments to the Park, Cemetery, Historic Preservation Boards. Marnie was confirmed as the county representative on this board. We had the second reading for accessible parking. The planning board ranking was discussed. They overall were toying with just saying go with what we've already got, but we have asked them to read them over and see if they agree or disagree. And we discussed the zoning recommendation from the city council, and we felt that since we already have it rated right after the growth policy, which would be the appropriate time when we're doing zoning and when we're doing our zoning, that would be the time. They didn't feel that there was a reason to push it forward above everything else at this point. That's it.
That it?
That's all.
All right, we don't have county representatives tonight, so communication from the mayor.
Question.
Oh, go ahead, Al.
So did they agree to go after the growth plan and the master plan?
They agreed to go after the downtown master plan, the growth
Okay.
policy, and then when we had it down as third anyways, to review and update the city zoning regulations. So they
Right.
felt that was the appropriate place.
So were those resolutions passed or were they deferred?
They were deferred until we really wanted the city council to look them over. I did a little brief synopsis of what was on that list.
Okay,
And that way they have an idea why we have it on that list.
right.
And we still want their input, but we're good until March or April anyway.
Right, okay, because you didn't mention the downtown master plan, I wanted to make sure that we get both of those done before we take on another project. Thanks.
Absolutely. They absolutely agreed to that.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for Sandy? Mayor?
Yeah, I had just to cover, I heard that, and I guess they are still looking at the priorities, but I did hear them lead with basically saying, you don't have to wait for us to look at it, proceed as you are. And I think part of that understanding was that the first several months were already booked out anyway. So if there's some fine tuning that can happen down the road, and they didn't want to get in the way of things proceeding. Jeff, is that your takeaway from there as well?
Yep.
The other thing I wanted to share is we did today get the information from our the airport consultant who's working with us. He forwarded that through to me. I immediately forwarded it on to the planners and to the planning board leadership. There's kind of a lot to wade through, so my guess and anticipation is that that may not necessarily get forwarded out to everybody immediately today. They may want to get a chance to read through that first. You guys already had enough reading on your agenda for today, so it didn't get sent to all of you, but as soon as it came in, it was forwarded on to our planning team and the planning board
Okay.
leadership.
I had a question.
Go ahead, Al.
Hey, Dave, I got, what you sent, from the, airport, personnel here this evening. It's very lengthy. Are we gonna pare that down to go into the growth policy, and who's gonna do that?
That's the next step, so I forwarded that on to the planners as well, as you've seen on that, and I will work with them. I sent them the scribbles that I had worked on, but yes, we'll need to pare it down, but there's also, that's the information that we pull from.
Okay. I mean, it was several pages. That's what we talked about earlier today. That's what you sent me, right?
Correct, and that's, and
Okay.
like I said, and then which ones do we want to include? There's the text, and then there's which graphs we want to include.
And I will share that with the planning board members. Is that the plan?
You have my blessing to do that whenever you feel it's appropriate.
I'll do that tomorrow.
Any other questions for the mayor? All right. Anything else, Steve?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman?
All right, on to, new business. There isn't any new business, so, at this point, I'd like to open it up to our public, either in the building here or online, to, if they have any comments about any of the items that are currently on the agenda. And basically, any comments related to the draft growth policy. At the end of the meeting, there'll be another opportunity for public communications on any other topic that's not on the agenda. So I'll open it up for here. Harry?
You can come up to the speaker so the folks.
Oh, yeah. No, it's just a correction on February 3rd. We are meeting at Zip Trip,
Oh.
and you said here. So I just want to make sure everybody's 3 p.m. at Zip Trip
All right.
for February
And that
3rd.
is also on the agenda.
Yes, okay. That's, well, he spoke it. I just want to make sure anyone listening also,
I thought we were gonna walk from here.
I'll walk with you, Sandy.
Yeah, we'll be tired by the time we get there.
That's it for me.
Well, they had talked about getting a van and going down.
We
but-
did, yeah.
All right. How about online? Anybody have any comments online?
No
All right,
comments.
No.
did somebody,
That was Angela said no.
all right. Moving on to old business and discussion review of the final draft growth policy that we've all had a chance to look at. And I'll turn it over to Greg to lead that discussion, but maybe before we do that, I was gonna see if you had any comments you'd like to make before we get into it, Al?
Yeah, is, you want to review what we discussed here earlier in the day, what our plan is for the review process and the public hearing process, or do you want to wait till later?
Well, maybe that would be a good time to bring it up now, because it might sort of set the stage on how we get through the
Right.
growth policy review.
As Jeff and I discussed here an hour or so ago, the plan tonight is for the planning board to get their final, or one of the last looks at the growth policy that we've been editing for the last several meetings. And then hopefully we'll get through that fairly quickly and easily. And then the planning board then will set a date. I think we need a 30-day window in advance of when we're gonna have the public, hearing on the growth policy. We want to set that date tonight. And then we want to confirm how the growth policy will be accessible to the public. What will be the manners of which the public can get to see it. And then finally, once the public has had the open meeting on the growth policy, it'll come back to the planning board at the subsequent meeting to make any changes that need to be made as a result of the public meeting, and then finalize it and send it on to the council. Hopefully, we can get that done by the last meeting in March. But that's kind of the tentative schedule that Jeff and I discussed earlier today.
Yeah, I think just to add to that, if I recall, Jeremy had suggested that the planning board, if they had any written comments on this draft, we could submit them during that 30-day review
Right.
period.
Yes,
And maybe when you get into it, Greg, maybe you can expound on that in terms of whether I heard Jeremy right or not, but that might dictate about how fast we can get through the review tonight.
yeah, and I think somewhere along the line, we're gonna have to publish where those written comments would be sent to, and I'm assuming they'll be sent to the planning board email address at the city.
I think that would be logical, yeah.
Yeah, so, Jeff, you're correct. The goal, I guess, for tonight is, we didn't receive any comments, but I assume there might be some amongst the planning board members. And I guess we want to focus on big picture items, like, is there intent or is there statements in there that are, not geared towards the intention of this planning board? If there's text edits or small little things, those can be sent throughout the whole public comment period, and we can get those incorporated into the final draft. So I think that's probably the best bet at getting everything done tonight. On getting through this draft is, as you bring up your comments, really focus on the big picture items. Something you feel that Great West and WWC can't, address just based on our interpretation.
And Greg, how did you think about going through it tonight? There's a couple of different ways we can do it. You can go around the table and have each member make any specific comment they want to, and that we'll be jumping around a little bit. Maybe that's the best way to do it rather than going through it page by page.
Yeah, that's one option. I guess Jeremy's plan that he conveyed to me, I guess, was to go
Yeah.
section by section and give
Yeah,
like, hey, we're in.
Whichever is easiest for you, that's what we'll do.
Yeah, just, I guess our thought with that was then people could cross off, all
Okay.
at the same time. So,
Okay,
yeah, so, shouldn't be, I guess, is this for everyone in person? Are you able to see this okay?
Yep.
Okay,
You could probably enlarge it a little bit,
a little bit more.
although I've got the document in front of me as well, so.
And I think that we're gonna need to include, I know that, Kristen Lucky Keys was on the city council at the start of this, but now Ann Rude is city council. And same with the planning board, where Marie Olson started this process, but Marnie Eccles Bell finished it. And I don't know whether it's worthwhile to say who's a county representative versus a city representative on
Okay,
the plan. I just kind of think that when people look at this, they know that the city and the county were both represented.
yeah,
and her first name is Marnie with an I.
Correct.
And you have Ann Rude's in the comments as well for spelling if you'd like.
Yep, we'll check spelling on the names. Okay. I guess, did anyone have any major comments on acknowledgements?
No.
Table of contents, we'll have Great West, check the formatting on that. Get rid of highlights, those are subject to change on the adoption. Figures, same thing. Okay, going to page 5, which is the introduction.
I
Any,
had- Well, on the planning efforts, I know that you started at 2015, but 2015 and 2019 were both capital improvement plans. So it's kind of interesting that it's also, it says it's in progress. I don't know who's doing that, but that would show that there were 3 years of that. And I don't know about the 1986 revitalization master plan. That is such a great plan. I hate to leave it off, but it says the following is a list of major plans that the city's developed since 2015. So maybe the 1986 master plan, as wonderful as it is, I hate to leave it out, but that's just me. But I think that the CIP should definitely show that we've been updating that as years go by.
okay.
Any other comments on that particular section,
Is there
Planning
any way
effort.
you can include that 1986 as an appendix issue and not so much in the first part?
Yeah, we can work it in there, I think.
Put it as part of the appendix. Because I think it's referred to in the document at some places.
I haven't run
I
across
think,
it.
I think Sandy was alluding to having it one of the bullet items.
Yeah, I
Even though
know.
it says that this is since, but that revitalization plan is something that we use religiously, and so it is part of our planning efforts.
Yeah, so can I say, I agree. I think we should bulletize it because I also noted in the document different places where I thought we should mention it because of the architecture and the historic character of the work that went into that should be referenced. And I mean, it deserves even being thrown into the text at certain points throughout the document. So it'd be good to list it here.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
Okay, we'll get him to work it in there.
I had one suggestion in that first sentence, since you look at this and it kind of implies that the city's began planning efforts in 2015. And I was gonna suggest inserting after efforts in that first line, beginning with the 1995 Red Lodge Master Plan, and then insert that phrase in there just to just reinforces the evidence that Red Lodge has been interested in planning for a long period of time.
We had a 1995
Okay.
master plan?
It's 1995 master plan, yes.
Okay, that's different than the revitalization of 1986.
Yeah.
You catch that, Greg?
He's typing.
Yep, we'll clean up the language. But we can definitely insert both those in there. Okay, moving on to page 8, I guess it is. Preview of Red Lodge growth policy. It's obviously a preview of all the sections. Any comments there?
On local services, you have transportation listed. I didn't know that we have Red Lodge transportation as a local service.
Maybe
I
they're
mean,
thinking of that
Red
cart.
Lodge area, Well, the foundation, I believe, is in charge of the transportation. I'd have to defer to the mayor about leaving the word transportation in there. I mean,
Do our trails and inner walkability fit into that umbrella?
well, it has local government, law enforcement, fire protection, libraries, museums, schools, and transportation. I just didn't know how the transportation got in there.
So we have an active
Yeah,
transportation.
if it didn't
plan.
say local services of the city, you could include transportation, but now that if you not said of the city, I had a Red Lodge Area Community Foundation in parentheses after transportation.
Yeah, because it says a description of the services the city provides.
Yeah, but I just put right there for clarification, I put in parentheses like he did, that transportation is from the foundation. I think
I wonder-
transportation ought to be in there because it is a service. It's not necessarily provided, but it's provided by the foundation. Is
Okay,
that too confusing?
I think it's all right if they're providing the transportation services. I think that's an okay clarification.
It's a local service, but it's not provided by the city.
And the library is both the city and the county, so how detailed do you want to get?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
What if we took out a description of the services provided,
The services, comma,
including, yes,
just get rid of the providing,
the city part.
strike through.
Yeah, if you could take the city part out, then you could take out the foundation part.
So a description of services provided
Right.
include.
Mhm. That's a simpler way to do it
You're hissing.
and be accurate.
Okay. Any other comments on the preview?
Public facilities, do we want to mention, recycling? We have solid waste.
It's part of solid waste. You could say solid waste and recycling if you want, right?
I think it would look good in the growth policy to say that we are a recycling city.
Yeah.
So solid waste and recycling.
Okay. Everyone's good with that, no objections? Guess we'll move on to goals, objectives, and action plans. Yeah, I guess starting with economy, was there any high-level comments on goals, objectives, or action plan for economy?
On
Thanks.
E3, economic objections, we need to remove the word "and" in section B. Protect the historic character of Main Street up to the Roosevelt Center instead of "and up to the Roosevelt."
I
Okay.
had the
Just-
same comment, Sandy. It just seemed, Kinda.
Awkward.
yeah, awkward.
And I have an overall question. I know that you do a lot of these. On the action plan, you use the header responsibility. How can we, as a city, do this growth policy and then say that we're assigning responsibility to the Chamber of Commerce or Red Lodge Area Community Foundation or any of these other groups that really aren't city groups? And I'm wondering, is there a better word as entity, or the responsibility to me is really overstepping, but that's just me.
Yeah, we can look into other words. I think it's, yeah, trying to get who plays the part in it or who is a hand in making this happen.
The shared
Exactly.
effort, right? Who's who's engaged in the shared effort.
I guess my comment on that is if you don't list an entity, who's gonna know who to collaborate with?
And I think we should list, but I don't want to call it a responsibility.
Oh.
Why don't we just
yeah.
say collaborators?
I like that.
I like that too.
How's that sound, everybody? Replace the heading responsibility to collaborators.
Yeah,
Or
I think
partners.
I like that.
Okay.
Is that okay, Greg?
Yeah, I think we'll refer back to some we've written, and Great West will too, and just see if that was also used. But if we don't come up with another option, we'll go to collaborators.
Okay.
Unless, yeah.
It took me 3 pages to be annoyed by that responsibility word.
Okay. Yeah, I guess if there's
Greg,
none other. Oh, go ahead, Teresa.
yeah, I have a question. So E4, so I know these are economic goals, but I mean, we already have working businesses, welcoming business development environment. Do we want to say maintain instead of create? Because I guess,
Yeah, maintain, if you guys, if you feel like there's already, if it's already feels welcoming to you, obviously you want to maintain that, so.
I don't know. I don't know how many of those meetings are like the Shark Tank or not, but I would imagine it's a business environment that everybody's working within already, but I just don't know. I just thought it was kind of, like it didn't already exist if you say create, but that's just me.
I like maintain. I think it's better. Yeah.
And then for B, E4B, it wasn't clear to me, and I couldn't recall what we were talking about when this was put down, but work with existing groups and businesses to consider providing art along Main Street. Do you mean to add murals as art, or to sell art, or to have install public art pieces, or conduct art events? It didn't really, I couldn't recall what that meant.
That was a general comment, I think, that came out of the public meeting, Teresa.
But
And what-
clarify what that means, or no?
I took that as historic art.
I think my recollection is that came out of the forum, and we picked art as a general, so it didn't, whether it was historic or modern or whatever it was just art.
Oh, so let some other groups define it then, right?
Yeah,
Okay, that's fine.
that's what my notes say here.
Okay.
But I think that was a forum, came out of the forum.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think
Under-
I recall that, Al.
And I've seen this throughout where there's create incentives. And I don't want to set us up for failure. I can't imagine what kind of incentives that the city council or chamber or the planning board especially can do for the maintenance of historic character of the buildings. I mean, look into incentives, I could see, but create incentives, I just couldn't envision. I just can't envision that as an action item.
Sue?
Well, it's just a possibility for what create incentives means. But, for example, in an environment that has the possibility of using Main Street grants and so forth, you want it to be something that people can collaborate with the city on, or particular groups, or particular individuals, or particular businesses can look into it as something that could be financed by the community. In other words, don't say, we don't care if you want to get anything done, you do it yourself. it's more traditional in Red Lodge. When people really want something done, they work together. And usually, if you're paying real close attention, you can find some incentives, either from a foundation or from Main Street, or occasionally from the city if there's excess money there. So I don't know how to succinctly describe incentives, but I think it's fair to leave it in there.
Do you replace create with identify?
Yeah,
Because then grants would follow.
Yeah,
I like
I
identify.
like identify. It implies somebody's gonna be looking for those opportunities at least, at the very least.
and it keeps from implying that you're gonna create money out of the air. Identify is a good substitute.
I like that.
And then,
Get that?
can I say one other thing, Jeff?
Go ahead.
At the end of that E4B, that same sentence that we were just talking about, the rehabilitation grant funding for facade upgrades is identified. It's not identified in the downtown master plan. Those facades are identified in the 1986 revitalization plan. We don't get into that detail in our new downtown plan.
Yeah,
So-
we're not through the new document yet. That's a note that we should make.
Right, so this is probably, you want to point these people for facade upgrades to the architectural renderings and things that were in the 1986 revitalization plan. It's very different from our downtown master plan now, though.
So you could put in parentheses, for example, the 1986 downtown master plan at the end of that, right? That would be enough to point him to that.
Back to the old document with the architectural, detail.
Okay. Yeah, I put a note in there for them to figure out which document it's in and then point them to the right one versus just covering it with downtown. So,
Yeah, I think it's the 1986 downtown revitalization plan that has all the architectural drawings associated with it. So that, I think that would be the correct document to reference.
perfect. Good
And of
comment.
course, when you're all done with this, I'm assuming that the page breaks will be different. Right, Greg?
Yeah, we should page break, at tables, not break up any tables.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it takes up a whole page, they should re-add, this header to each one and say continued.
Correct.
Okay, so if there's no more comments on economy, we're into housing. Any comments on goals or objectives? Starting with H1.
I was going to, well, maybe we don't need to add it, but on a presentation I sat in on today, they referenced the use of TIF funds to help finance housing. So I was just thinking, as I read through that, where it talks about CDBG housing stabilization funds, it also, could put and TIF funds, but I don't know if that's needed or not. But I just bring that up simply because it was referenced today as another funding source for developing housing, particularly entry-level housing in communities.
I think it sounds like a good idea because it also points back to the URD anyway and the objective to use TIF money for at least reducing the cost of housing, right?
I would
Just-
hesitate to put it in there until we understand more about what that process is.
that's kind of the way I felt, is that we hadn't addressed URD or TIP funds at all yet. So to put it in here is only gonna raise questions with no answers in the previous pages.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from, Jeff, is, as I heard that today, I thought that's something that we need to investigate. I'm not sure what the ramifications are, if that's even applicable to Red Lodge.
Yeah, I'd recommend not putting it in that one, just because TIFs are usually similar to URDs, where they're a stands for tax increment financing. So I think it's
Right.
a district or a tax you need to put on an area, so it's not necessarily the same as a grant or loan. So I'd recommend looking into it more and deciding if you want to have that as a, you know, a K to this table or not. Any more comments on H1?
Well, the only other one was kind of referencing back to what I heard today, was they referred to as instead of ADUs, they referred to them as backyard cottages. As if we want to add that as behind tiny homes.
Which letter is that in, Jeff?
H.
Okay. Anyone have objections to backyard cottages?
No. That's like me calling an irrigation ditch a seasonal stream.
Okay,
Uh,
action plan for housing, H1.
on your action plan, H1C, you started it on that page, and then on the next page, kind of repeated it. So all of the H1C from what is numbered page 8 needs to come off because it's repeated on the next page.
Okay.
Verbatim. And H1G is cut off, so.
That doesn't happen on mine, Sandy. Is it just yours?
Didn't happen in mine either.
No, I don't have any problems with mine.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah. I mean, I just printed out the file. I'm here. Next page. Wow. It just printed out weird.
Yeah.
Okay. Then
I'll
it was
leave
just mine.
I'll leave the note for formatting, just like we talked about a minute ago. The tables having continuations and headers, so it's easier to read. Because I guess Teresa and Jeff's version, H1C goes from page 8 to page 9 and just continues. So
Huh. Well, I was having trouble printing it out, so I
okay,
don't know what.
I guess last chance for comments on action plan.
On H1AF and H1AFH, where it just says city council, shouldn't it also include planning board?
Municipal code? No.
Well, it talks about encourage redevelopment properties, and that would then kind of touches on zoning. And then
I don't know, Jeff. Is it really our role to identify potential properties for redevelopment? Or is that city council and land use?
Oh, that's a good point.
Probably city council and land use.
And what?
Probably city council and land use. It would still end up being here at some point, but not identifying specific property parcels.
It'll be city council and land use.
Well, it's part of, land use planning is part of city council, so.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, okay.
Going into land use, goals and objectives.
On LU1D, ensure that new development continues, not ensure the new development,
Okay. Easy change.
or take
No,
it
that's
out and say ensure.
That's
New
a good
development.
catch, Sandy. I didn't catch that one, yeah, okay.
It helps when I print it out.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can I go back to the one we were just looking at? So I agree with the discussion up there. This is the identify parcels. We have, it's a floating, but we have a community development element, which is staff. So maybe that's what, let's just say city council and staff. Because that covers that community development area. Are you all right with that?
Yeah.
And should the rating be not low, but a little higher? Should the schedule, they have it as low.
Yeah, I see what you mean, Sandy, because of course, the objectives, everything is high, 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 so why wouldn't we want to act on everything high?
That was kind of my thought. Is that we're talking about trying to get workforce housing and identifying parcels for redeveloping for housing falls right into the high part.
Mhm.
That's kind of where it all starts. Where would you do that?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, we can change that to high. Okay. Go back to land use.
Why do you normally have a comma when you have multiple entities there, rather than an and, just noticing.
That question, would,
Go ahead.
I mean, the staff is intertwined through this whole process. So do we need to identify staff and each one of these where it's appropriate? To me, when you say city council, that includes the whole city group. Because as I said, the staff is involved in this intricately throughout this whole process.
I think that's a good point, and I think what we do is just make a note to have them go through and add staff everywhere it's appropriate.
I mean, otherwise you're gonna have to put staff on a lot of different places once you start doing it. For me, when you say city council, that includes the entire building over there. But that's. I think staff,
I see them as totally separate.
well, then we're gonna have to put staff in a couple other places, are we not?
Yeah, we're gonna have to think about that.
Yeah. That's why I just soon not.
I would, the planning team could tell us where the appropriate places to fill in staff is and have them do that initially.
And it should be city staff,
Yeah.
not just staff, city staff.
I did like the reference to community development, because that would be their function. That's actually the staff that would actually do the background work to identify for the council parcels.
Yeah, and the reason I switched from community development director to staff is because community development director right now is currently a role, and we've had different members of staff fill that role.
With different
at
titles.
times.
I mean, at some point, we're gonna have, we've got our current consulting planners now, but at some point down the road, we may have a staff planner. Are we getting too far down the weeds, here, trying to be too specific?
What do you think, Greg? Are we getting, at this point, maybe it is just I mean, city council is gonna provide direction to the
Yeah,
staff to do the
city,
work,
city council is the key.
and they're the ones
Yeah,
that,
I would lean more towards the parties that are gonna have some sort of decision making or voting or say in the outcome versus who actually does the work. I think that's a little more in the details of a higher level growth policy. But I can also see from the two members on the city council's perspective of others need to be involved. So I would lean more towards not including city staff everywhere, but it's your guys' growth policy.
Well, it doesn't matter who does it. We can put whatever we want here. It get done.
I would hope we do eliminate city staff, because then I think that opens up the Pandora's box as to where they are and where they're not. And we need to put them appropriately, in which we'd have to go back and review every one of these. So if you just say city council, I think that's broad enough to incorporate all responsible parties.
Okay.
I'm okay with that, Al.
do we have consensus on that,
Not really.
Sue?
I mean, I'm outnumbered, but I think it would be nice if somewhere in there we could mention something akin to a community development director, so that we would have someone who could assist the city council or educate the city council or work with the city council. Because you're talking about city council where some of the people are very, very bright and they know all kinds of things about Red Lodge and they know what the people want. But on the other hand, if you have a community development director, they can add to it the things that they've learned through many years of study about places where it worked, what did work in such and such situations. And they can educate and discuss and partner to come up with a much more universal solution than you would have just by having city council or a community development director. Having them work together would be ideal, I think, but how you fit it on here, I don't know.
What do folks think about that? I think Sue raised some valid points and ideas about bringing in that perspective and providing that staff support.
You don't want to just say general city staff, and then you would have to put it everywhere. But it's the community development director or the planning director that you would look for, partnership with in order to determine, where we're, what rocks we're looking under, what that makes sense, right? So at some level, it makes sense to say community development. But on the other hand, it's the mayor that can direct the staff only, only the mayor. City council could point the direction that they think the city needs to go in, but it's up to the mayor to appoint and include various staff members, right?
Well, I think we've spent too much time on this thing right now, but personally, if you're gonna put city staff there with city council, you need to put city staff wherever you have city council.
And that doesn't mean anything. That means
And
nothing.
and to me, that's redundant, but whatever you all decide, I think city council is sufficient, but if you want to put city council and city staff, I'm not gonna argue too hard against it.
Well, the city council can direct the mayor and the mayor can direct the people underneath him, so,
So
I'm okay
ultimately,
with-
ultimately, it's the council.
yeah, so I'm
Right.
okay with it either way.
Trace,
I'm okay with just city council.
John,
I'm right along there with you. City
all
council.
right. All right, I guess that's the feeling of the majority.
Okay. Um,
Sorry, I brought it up.
back to land use. Yeah, any more comments on goals or objectives for land use?
Yeah, on LU3, I was gonna suggest crossing out cul-de-sac in D, because Red Lodge does not allow cul-de-sacs except in special situations.
Okay.
At least in our current growth policy and zoning regulations.
I had a note on that same area with a question mark of multiple access points. I don't want a new subdivision to have one road in and one road out. And I know that it says require that new developments meet the requirements for emergency service access, but Alpine Basin got away with it because they are a PUD and not a subdivision. Were they a subdivision, they would have had to have two accesses for the 60 homes, but because they were a PUD, they didn't. But I think that we should have multiple access points on every subdivision where there's entrance, egress, and, ingress and egress, not just one. And I don't know how you want to put that in there, but I think that that's important.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Yeah, let me just make a note of that and we'll figure out how to insert that. 2 points of access.
And did you capture my comment on the cul-de-sac word?
Yes, I removed cul-de-sac from there, just if you don't really require them. We're just pointing out examples, I guess, of things to meet, so we can either find another one or just remove cul-de-sac specifically.
I would remove it because later on in this document, we talk about encouraging through fair connections, streets,
No dead ends.
or cul-de-sacs.
Which is a dead end.
So taking that out here kind of keeps it consistent with what we say later on in the document.
Okay.
Under L4, I think that whenever you refer to state statutes, the state word should be capitalized because it's a specific state. And that's kind of all through the document, that if it's followed by statutes, it should be state statutes with a capital S. And under B, it says review the current zoning regulations and amend regulations. Can we say consider amending instead of we will amend? And consider amending regulations to allow for higher density residential uses. I think that we'd rather consider amending as opposed to amend.
Yes, I think that's a good change.
Okay. And under L6C, ensure adequate future water supplies for areas to be annexed. Shouldn't we also consider sewer capacity as well as water supplies?
Could say utility capacities or say water supplies and wastewater capacity.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else besides Stanley in land use goals and objectives?
Let's see what I did today.
I was under LU4C, I was going to suggest adding cottage units after tiny homes as well, or backyard cottage.
That one, I think with the state law, if your zoning district allows single family homes, you have to allow those backyard cottages. So we can add it, but it doesn't necessarily make sense with the allow for, because state law allows for it already.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
yeah, I was just, yeah,
Just trying to get that verbiage in there.
what's that?
You were trying to get that verbiage in there.
Well, it sounds better than ADU.
Do you change the word consider to update? And then it addresses it?
What were you talking, Dave?
On C, where
On
it
C.
says consider zoning districts to allow, do you just change that to update zoning districts to allow?
Or you could say, consider zoning district allowances for, or allow zoning districts, yeah, it's gotta be a better way of saying it. Zoning district allowances for manufactured and tiny home residential units.
What if it's consider zoning districts to allow for additional residential units? Period. Which would include manufactured, tiny homes, backyard cottages, ADUs, any
Yep.
name you want to put on it.
Open for anything, right?
Yeah, so consider zoning districts to allow for home residential units. Or increased home residential units. Additional, how about additional? Consider zoning districts to allow for additional home residential units.
Or just additional backyard residential units, right? But they could be, here we go, if we have to name everything that could be, like, what do they
We're
call
gonna
them?
miss something.
Garden apartments over the garages, et cetera, et cetera. It's,
We're
yeah.
gonna miss something, exactly.
Okay. We can work on the wording of that, but I think we get the intent. Keep it a little more general.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
You could use the word, just increase, density of residential units. That's really what you're trying to do, is increase density through
different means,
ADUs and tiny homes and
lot sizes,
those kinds of things.
there's lots of ways to do it.
Okay. I think that makes sense, Jeff. All right, moving on to the action plan. Any comments there? Not hearing any. So on to local service goals and objectives.
I had an addition under LS4A, provide the public with a multitude of different means to disseminate public notices and meetings. We don't mention really meetings in here, except for in D, which is to update our technology.
Okay.
And it could be, and public meetings, with whatever works better.
Easy enough.
And under that same one, I was gonna maybe suggest adding an E, basically to provide a public reading room where the public can access documents, maps, plans, and projects. That was something that was mentioned to me a while ago in terms of, it's hard to get access to documents that aren't online, or maps that are too small to really see online. And this kind of just a suggestion that there kind of be a public reading room or public space where the public can get access to and read the hard copy documents.
It's a great idea. We use the mayor's office.
Yeah.
It'll be Mayor Dave at Westwood and public reading room. Or rename the toilet facility. I think it's a great idea, I just don't know how it would be implemented.
I think that's a good goal and objective. Move on to the action plan if there's no more comments for that one. So local service action plan. Any comments there?
I was on LS1A and LS3B has it as a medium, and I was wondering why maybe that shouldn't be high. Just given that where the technology is and the savings that it provides in record keeping maps up to date and
There's no objections to that. We'll change it to high.
I don't know anything about it. LS6A-B, create a plan for the disposal of deceased animals within the city. And then it says through the Public Works Department. And then the responsibility is the planning board. I'm not picking up any dead animal. I want to go on record right now, okay?
Yeah.
Or I remove planning board there.
Thank you. And the verbiage that says through the Public Works Department. And
Okay,
the same thing with LS7A,
Right.
where the planning board is creating a solid waste and recycling ordinance and management plan. I don't think that's the,
That's city council. So,
Oops. Oh,
I was on LS1A, B, and LS3AC. And in addition to Public Works, I was going to suggest adding Beartooth Trails. They're the ones that have been doing inventory on trails and such, or coordinating with the city.
what's it called now?
Beartooth Trails. And maybe Parks Board as well.
Mhm.
And then LS2B, in addition to City Council, I had Parks Board and Beartooth Trails.
Good image there. We'll move on to public infrastructure if there's nothing else. Goals and objectives, comments?
I had a question on IPF1, maintain and improve water system. C says annually review the water treatment facility to ensure that the citizens continue to have clean drinking water. I thought the water was tested monthly, so an annual test of our water doesn't seem,
yeah, it says state mandated and Jeff probably reports a lot more often than annually. Yes, he does.
can we just say not annually review, but review the water treatment facility? And leave it at, without, monthly or annually, just review it? Or maintain
Or
the
periodic,
water.
periodic reviews.
I mean, they have to post the water condition report results anyway publicly, so this is getting done. So you just
So
say.
we're
continue to
ahead of our.
review. Yeah.
Can we just say maintain the water treatment facility
Yeah,
to ensure?
Yeah, I think
And
this one's in here just to kind of help with grant funding support. But yeah, the annually thing should be taken out. So I think maintain's appropriate.
Mhm.
Okay.
West Fork, it would be West Fork on D.
You
I
don't
can't-
like West Fock?
No, it should be West Fork.
It rhymes with rock.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good catch.
Keep going through to action plan, if there's no more on the goals and objectives.
One more on the goals and objectives. IPF 7D. It says address congestion, vehicular congestion. Should it just say, address congestion in the downtown area? Not necessarily vehicular, unless we're gonna include bicycles and pedestrians? Should it just say address congestion in the downtown area?
Yeah, I would say since this goal is focusing on multimodal, you probably don't want to limit it to vehicles. So address congestion in the downtown area. It's probably a good
Okay.
change. Okay. Action plan.
Under 1D, the planning board's not gonna be involved in creating a source water protection plan. It's gonna be Public Works.
Okay.
Wouldn't city council have to approve it?
No. The mayor tells the Public Works what to do.
But doesn't city council approve all plans, review and approve all plans?
I hope not.
No, they more state the objectives and then say, go do. This, I wasn't gonna comment, because this is kind of going back to that same conversation we had a minute ago that everybody deemed a rat hole, so.
I mean, we can leave city council if you want, but Public Works is gonna be responsible for that, or whatever word we choose. And I also thought that IPF 5, that the schedule should be high, not medium. And that was assess and document the current conditions of all city-owned buildings and structures. Considering we're in the process of this structure being updated, that perhaps,
Is that being done through the sustainability board, their action plan? Is it something that's in progress, you mean?
it is in progress.
Okay.
And that's probably, is it done through sustainability?
It's one
They
of their,
update-
yeah.
No, it's done through some other grant you have, the grant. But it is high on sustainability. And finalize the preliminary engineering report for the city sewer system. Again, I don't think that the planning board is gonna have anything to do with the city sewer system. Not our area of expertise. And on 7D, you've got direct the public dash,
Can we
Two
not
dash-
include a specific firm, where it says Great West Engineering?
ah,
Either go back to engineering firm or Public Works, because we're working with it, because
Probably Public Works.
I think Public
Yeah.
Works.
That, Dave?
Yeah,
yeah, we ought not to bind ourselves to any specific contractor provider in this.
and in 7D, there's a bunch of hyphens, public to public parking lots. Develop an informational strategy to direct the public, no hyphen, to no hyphen, public parking lots. Just over hyphened.
I had a comment on IPF 6A and B, where it says develop incentive programs for local residents. And I suggest adding and commercial businesses. And that kind of reference to the CPACE program that's being discussed right now.
I like that.
And,
Um,
and it- and then IPF 7C, I was gonna add, Beartooth Trails and Parks Board again, to work on the multimodal connection at Highway 212 roundabout to 2 Mile Bridge.
If there's nothing else on that, we'll go to natural and cultural resource goals and objectives.
I had a question on NR3C. Reduce the human impact on wildlife by implementing a policy to curtail wildlife. How are we going to curtail wildlife? How can that be done? I'm open.
I was wondering if it was an incomplete sentence, that the intent was to curtail wildlife-human conflicts.
Well, then
But I had
reduce
the
the
same-
human impact on wildlife. Okay.
Yeah, I had a similar question about that. I wasn't sure where, sounds like something was missing in that.
Either that or we were all gonna go hunting to curtail the wildlife.
It can't make sense if all of us have highlighted that. I did too.
I'll put a note for Kevin and team to sort this one out.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
If the intent was to curtail wildlife and human
Action, conflict, yeah.
conflicts, then the better way of addressing that would be, and I think it's added later on, so it may not be worth adding here, is implement a public education, parentheses, bear aware program to reduce human wildlife conflicts or encounters.
Well, we also have some pretty vicious turkeys
And moose.
and moose.
Okay.
Anyway, I think that kind of needs to be cleaned up a little. Same
Yeah.
with D.
Go ahead. Al, did you have something? Or John?
Yeah. Al, you're on mute.
Yeah, you got it with human conflict. That was my comment in there. That's what I thought the implication was.
And on NR6C, you wrote increase the setback regulations for all streams. Can we consider increasing the setback regulations rather than increase, just consider increasing the setback? Because each one is different.
Moving on to action plan, if there's no more on the goals and objectives.
Well, I had a question, NR6A. Says incorporate into the zoning code methods to ensure that no scarring of slopes on the benches occurs. I'm not sure what the intent there was. Is the intent to not impact the visual characteristics of?
I took it to mean visually, right? Impact, protect steep slopes and refrain from inappropriate development. The scarring is something that would be disturbing the view shed, right? Or something
Well,
like that, maybe? I don't know.
That's what I was thinking. I was getting at it was impacting the view shed from the city center or the down, or, the core part of the city. I mean, that's been the intent, to to limit development on the, or having the setbacks on the benches and
But not the slopes. We've never considered the slopes of the benches are so watery that nobody is going to build there because it's too much of an effort to try to get the water away.
And-
So I don't know what scarring of that means, except for taking a bulldozer and digging a big old hole up there, maybe making a pond. I don't know.
Well, scarring is a
Or-
term that's used often for surface damage. So what's your issue with this particular one, Jeff?
well, I wasn't sure what the intent was on that, whether it was related to the visual, maintaining the visual characteristics of the benches and slopes, or whether it was to, yeah. If
Scarring is visual.
I guess, yeah, I mean, if it's understandable to everybody else, I'm okay with it. I just kind of struck me as strange, but I'm okay
I
with
think
it.
with I think with the steep slopes too, the vegetation helps maintain them from sloughing and erosion. So like in your zoning regs already, you have, based on the slope, kind of dictates how much development you can do. So I think the intent is along those lines.
Can we talk about a what if scenario? And I'm not sure if this fits into it or not, but there are those long slivers of land for sale now up on the west bench. And in order for anybody to build there, I'm sure they'd have to pour a ton and ton, gigatons of concrete to create some sort of a foundation. Would that be considered scarring or destroying our view shed?
Definitely destroying the view shed.
Yeah. But we don't have anything in our zoning code that says these are methods to ensure no scarring of slopes. So maybe this means that we don't really say what is and is not permissible in areas like that. I don't know what the methods would be other than pouring a mountainside of concrete.
Well, to
The
me,
problem-
it comes when you're doing a zoning code, whatever that zoning code is. The zoning code may allow for some foundation work or building work, but then unnecessary scarring, unnecessary moving of trees and shrubs and all those types of things. So I saw it as a general zoning would be the specific, and this is just a heads up that we want to make sure that we don't over damage the slopes. That's the way I interpret this sentence.
So the action would be revisit our zoning regulations specifically where there's potential for building on slopes of the benches, right? Okay.
I think if we leave scarring on there, everybody will have the same issue we're having, which is the definition of scarring. So I think we definitely need to remove the word scarring.
Or put it into definitions, because there is a definition for scarring on topography. So you put it in the definitions.
We'll put a note to use an alternative word or
Okay.
an definition.
Yeah, I think the intent here is to minimize the impacts to the slopes as well as
Yes.
the benches and to maintain the vegetative cover and later on, we address the threat of slumping, which all those slopes have a
Slumping.
hazard for slumping, and they're not very stable, I guess is a way of saying it. Okay, so moving on.
Okay, yep, moving on to action plan.
I took the planning board off the first two,
Yes.
actually the first three. Added fire department onto NR4. And I did put a slash on NR1 at the end of the first sentence, it's and/or floodplain management easement, so it's and/or.
I took planning board off NRC, NR3C as well.
I did too. Off of A, and then 3B, C, D, F, and then C, and I added fire department to AB.
Okay,
I took it off NR6A. I took it off of there.
Oh, yeah, it's there, because we're not making a mitigation plan.
Nope. Not unless our job description has changed somewhere along the line that I didn't know about.
you said B as well, I assume, Al? Flood management,
Yep.
okay. No, I'll put a comment for them. Just to
Actually,
review planning board on all these.
6B is the same thing. We're not going to be developing a flood management plan. That will be city council.
Okay. Yep, got that one removed. I also added a note just for Great West to re-review all these for planning board to make sure it's appropriate. That seems to be the one that's used in the wrong spot. Okay, no more comments on that. We'll go to resident participation, goals and
Well,
objectives.
I had a comment on NR3C of incorporating an education component to that wildlife management plan. A public education component to.
Yep, good ad.
And then, I was thinking about, an additional NR6B to work with the county DNRC conservation districts to complete a channel mitigation zone map for Rock Creek as an action item.
Add an action item.
Yeah.
Can you say that one more time, Jeff?
What's that?
Can you say that one more time?
Work with the county, Montana DNRC Conservation District to complete a channel migration zone map for Rock Creek.
Okay.
And the responsibility for that is?
It would be the county, the city, and conservation district. And DNRC.
And FWP?
And probably FWP as
Have we
well.
got enough initials going?
Okay.
Yeah, can I ask a question? So on
Go
NR,
ahead.
NR3 where it says B, C, D, E, F, so develop a city bear management program and enforce use of bear safe. Do we want to just broaden that just to say wildlife management program?
Well, I think that's what
We attract-
3C does, doesn't it?
Yeah, and so, yeah, why do we need both then at that point if we do? Because, I mean, we've got turkeys that are attracted, we've got deer that are attracted, and they're all running across the roads. So it's not just trash cans, but it's a lot of things. So just a general wildlife management plan? Do we need to have a specific one for all of wildlife and another one just for bears?
I think so, because we have these, bear-resistant containers. So we are already doing something about the bears to reduce conflict and rehabilitate them. So I think the bears need to be discussed because of the cans, the trash cans.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're not throwing that initiative out. We're just saying it's a bigger problem than just bears.
Well, I think it's both, but bears have the biggest potential for an adverse bear-human encounter, especially with the growing grizzly population. So I think FWP would say, and they are in fact encouraging more emphasis on bear management through public education and
Okay.
bear-aware programs. So
So this helps to prioritize it, Jeff, that way, broken out, you mean?
I mean,
I prefer
I
the two
agree.
different
What's
lines.
that?
Yeah, two different lines.
Yeah, two different lines. I think,
Yeah, I'm good with it. I just wondered.
anybody else on that?
Resident participation, goals and objectives. Comments?
I just had a question on why creating a youth advisory council was low. I was thinking should be medium or high, but that's just my thought.
I thought that was a great idea, and I'd like to see it a little higher. I'm okay with medium.
It's been talked about for years, so at least let's raise it. Medium.
Okay. Anyone else on resident participation?
I had RP 1AD as medium as well, because we got a lot of comment about communication.
Okay. Yeah, these are typically the schedule, that's typically the planning board goes through and kind of helps us update that for your guys' priorities. So these are good changes. And if there's no more on that, we're through the goals and objectives and into the
Do we
text.
need to do a status check here? It's 7 o'clock. We're on page 20.
Yeah, Jeff, I think we're gonna have to adjust our schedule and finish this up on the 26th, I hope. And then push the growth policy, or I'm sorry, push the downtown master plan till the following month. Because we're about halfway through this, right, Greg?
Yeah, I would say we're about halfway, given the goals and objectives is typically the longest part.
So what do you think, Jeff? Push,
Well, I think, I mean, I don't have a lot in terms of this particular section, but when we get later on, there's a few comments. I guess I was gonna throw this out is we do track, if anybody's got any additions or corrections, you know, from page 20 on, or if we continue on where we end tonight, maybe use track changes and submit those to Greg, and then at the next meeting, it might go through a little bit quicker.
okay, so we'll submit any adjustments in writing to Greg and then finish it up on the 12th of February.
Yeah, that's our next meeting.
But right now, we have Jarvis scheduled for the 12th. Should we push him to the 26th?
Well, we should finish this off, I think, for sure. So we don't,
Yeah, we wanna get this, just based on your guys' last time, we wanna
No.
get the public hearing.
So Greg, if we do that, we need to push the downtown master plan to the 26th.
Okay, and I can relay that to Jim and
Huh?
Kevin. I can relay that to Jim and Kevin.
Okay. Because once we go through this again, we're gonna have to spend a few minutes spending some time on setting the dates and the process for the public hearing.
Okay.
Okay, Jeff?
Yeah, how's everybody else feel about that?
I'm fine with that.
Are we,
I really,
stopping?
I'm sorry,
Therese, go-
Teresa, go ahead.
I just in general, I don't see that the city boundary has been updated. On
City
all,
what?
the city boundary on the maps. I mean, I'm just putting it out there. I don't see it's updated.
We'll get to it.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What needs to be updated?
City boundaries on all the maps.
Oh, yeah. So we may spend some time on that as well. Like I said, I read through this twice and I didn't go quite the detail that some of you did, but I thought this was very good and very useful. And I appreciate the detail that Sandy and Teresa, Jeff went through on this. And I don't want to rush it. And so if everybody agrees, we'll finish this up on the 12th. And push downtown master plan to the 26th. John, are you okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. Jeff?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Well,
And maybe for the next 10 minutes, we can continue on this document, and then that's kind of begins our
Okay.
starting point.
okay.
Is that okay, Greg? Maybe,
Yeah, yeah, I think that's great.
Mayor, are you okay with this revised schedule?
I am. I agree with your earlier assessment that it takes what it takes to do it right.
Yeah, that's where I'm coming from, is that I don't want to rush it.
I did appreciate Teresa's call out of things like the map, because that's some stuff that's bigger and maybe gives them a little more time to work on prior to the next meeting.
So Jeff, let's keep going for the next 15 minutes or so, then you can close it up with public comment and staff reports and so forth.
okay, sounds good. Go ahead, Greg.
Okay, on to population characteristics. I guess anything on this page, we'll call it 22.
Is 22 the most recent information we have on these?
Yes, this is the version I just sent out, what Great West is calling the final draft.
I think the question was, do we have more recent population information than the 2010 census?
Oh, gotcha. The 2010.
I didn't see it 2022. Did I understand your question correctly?
Well, all of this is based on 2022, and I think that was right in the middle of, or end of COVID, and, you know, everything changed drastically, and then it settled back down, so I just, not that this is any big deal, I assume that people that like statistics will just think this is the most wonderful thing in the entire world. I just looked at it and went, I don't think so. Well, maybe.
Yep, I'll put a note to make sure they're using the most recent. And that can kind of be a global comment throughout.
Say, Greg,
Yes.
I didn't mention it earlier, but the word all through this document is sometimes it likes city capitalized and sometimes it doesn't. How do we decide when to capitalize city and when not to? Or should it always be capitalized?
I think Sandy described it great earlier, where if you're referencing the city of Red Lodge or, you know, another city, it's capitalized. But if you're just talking about general cities as like a noun, then it's lowercase.
So like in this paragraph here, word is identified city as, should be small case. So I'm not sure which one is right, but I didn't bring it up earlier but it's all through the document.
Yeah, so I would say in our writing, the rate for the
Okay.
city, we're referencing Red Lodge here.
All right.
I did have a comment on page 25 of this section with all of this. In the paragraph above the word labor, it says this information should not only be considered in future planning efforts, and not only we're missing something, or this information should only be considered, or, I don't know, usually you say not only be considered in future planning efforts, but something else. Keep going.
What page is that, Sandy? I didn't hear it. 25?
The document page is 25. It's right after median household per capita. What says per capita? I think it means per capita, doesn't it? Yeah, that's the header. It says median household and per capita. I think it means per capita. And then if you go to the very next page, at the top, it starts with 2022 consensus data for Red Lodge estimates. Yep, right. Keep going. It's that next paragraph. Right there at the top of the screen. The last line in that paragraph says this information should not only be considered in future planning efforts, period. It's not a sentence. This information should only be considered in future planning efforts. This information should be considered. Not only is weird.
Yeah, we'll have to check their intent on that one.
And under employment after labor, on the last sentence, it says census data shows there are blank amount of people that work for nonprofits in Red Lodge. I think we might do better to say how many nonprofits there are. I don't know how many people work for nonprofits.
I think the latest
And-
count on nonprofits was 58 or 60 something. Is that right?
68, I thought.
68, 64, somewhere in the 60s.
So it's like 68 nonprofits, not people, but nonprofits.
I think that's a better way. Yeah.
Okay. Was there any more in the previous sections we kind of scrolled through, or keep moving on?
No,
Okay. It's just a table figure. Financial outlook, just page 27 of the document. Okay.
housing. There are approximately 1,910 housing units in Red Lodge. This is a recent number.
Yeah, we ought to use that STR report. We should be
Exactly.
consistent. Yeah.
Exactly, and I don't know. It says 29% of Red Lodge homes are seasonal, recreational, or occasional use. So we know that short-term rentals are 10.2% of available housing in Red Lodge, but I don't think we need to put that in there. But we do know the numbers is 1910. Now the problem is your graphic has 1803 when it should be 1910 or 1910.
I questioned on that paragraph, Sandy, and I don't have it. The STR report had the percentage, I'm sorry, you have to roll back. The percentage available was in the 60s, not 70s, I thought. Approximately.
Well, it says 71% of those units are reported as occupied. We don't have that kind of information.
Yeah.
That leaves 29% for others. The short term, on the next page, Al, we can go ahead and do the short-term rental stuff.
Yeah. I just thought the numbers should be consistent with that STR report.
Yeah, and that's why that whole section on short-term rentals on the next page needs to be conformed to the the report we just got.
Do you have that report, Greg, or do we need to send it to you?
I've got the slides that
Yeah,
Jody
that's-
presented,
yeah.
so,
you've got it?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll update that to match.
And when
Um,
you get into the short-term rentals, the idea of saying of those, what percent are professionally managed, I'd like to remove that out completely. What does that matter? Some of the ones that are managed by homeowners, those are professionals as well. They're just not a company. They're an individual that owns it. I would like to leave out that sentence. Of those, you have it as, of those 191 are professionally managed. I just don't see I don't see what value that is to anybody.
I mean, does it matter to the person coming in, whether it's a corporation managed or a private owner managed? Does it matter?
Yeah, that was kind of my point.
The only thing I could think of would be, just for economic reasons, it's providing income to someone else or something along those lines, but I guess it's up to you guys if you want it in there or not.
I just didn't know if it mattered to a visitor or not. If it matters, that we should put it in there. If it doesn't matter, and I don't know the answer.
And it has gone down. It was 10.6%, now it's 10.2%, which you'll see
Yeah.
on those slides.
Yeah.
And it says, in recent years, Red Lodge has experienced increasing pressure from new developments to be marketed for short-term rental. Who's pressuring them?
So if this is our growth policy, though, what is it we're trying to say? That we want to continue growing, representing that all of our short-term rentals are managed in one way or another, right? They're well managed. But I don't know if we need to say that. They wouldn't be licensed if they weren't managed, right?
That's right. Registered. That's why I
Yeah.
thought that sentence served absolutely no purpose.
We just
And then
want
the
to
next-
ensure, I think for growth policy purposes, if this is what this is the whole purpose behind this, is for growth policy, right? We just want to say that Red Lodge ensures that short-term rentals are registered and well managed, right? Or within the compliance guidelines of businesses and city and state code, right?
Well, I put a question mark on that because I wasn't sure if that was even an accurate statement. And also the percentage is not consistent with what the report is on the last sentence.
Which a lot of this section, that like this is kind of your stats section. So it's not, I guess, as much, planning board or public opinion. This is supposed to be how things are. So if this speculation or statement doesn't match, I guess, something you guys want to represent in your stats, I'd say remove it.
Isn't it more important to say that the city of Red Lodge has invested in software that ensures that short-term rentals are registered and compliant for the
That's
safety
what
and
it says.
security of residents and visitors alike, right?
It says the city purchased STR compliant software in 2021 and has since gained a better understanding of STRs in the community. Software has determined to bring unregistered STRs into compliance. So we've already got that there.
Right. So the message we're sending is that we have eyes on it. It's being managed. It's not just every man for themselves, it's not the Wild West, right?
And I think the STR makeup is now 10.2%, is it not?
It is. And there are 196 active STRs.
I guess it-
79, yeah,
I guess the bottom line is, Greg, you need to go through that report and make sure the numbers are consistent with this document.
Yep. Can do. This is,
This is
And I
probably
was-
a good,
Jeff, it's 7:20. I don't know if you wanna,
that's probably a good stopping place if you want to stay at our 7:30 time, Jeff.
Yeah, why don't we, yeah, this is a good spot to stop. So we'll pick up with Red Lodge available community housing next meeting, but as you go through, like we said, go through the document using track changes to make your comments and send those to Greg so that we have them for the next meeting. Greg, do you have anything else to add? Or Al?
No, I'm good.
nope, I think I'm good. And yeah, I think this just kind of pushes back everything 2 weeks, which is fine. We'll just bump everything 2 weeks, either direction.
All right, next on the agenda is staff communications and update. Do you have anything, Mayor?
I do not.
Greg, do you have anything?
Nope, nothing upcoming that I know of.
Hey, Greg, that RV park stuff that's going on at Alpine, that's not gonna come before the planning board, is it? That's being handled administratively?
Correct. It'll go to city council, but it doesn't come to planning board.
All right, good, thank you. And no other pending applications that you see in the next month?
Nope, we've not reviewed or received anything.
Okay,
All right, petitions and communications from the audience. Anybody online have any comments?
No
Hearing
comments.
none. What was that?
No comments, thank you.
All right. So, let's review. So the next meeting date is February what?
well,
And then we'll pick up downtown planning on the 26th again?
that's the plan right now, yeah.
Okay.
And will we let Great Western know, Greg, that change in schedule? And Jeremy as well?
Yes, I'll relay it to everyone.
Yeah. And,
All
and
right.
Mayor Dave, can you stay on for just a second after adjournment?
I can?
Thanks.
All right. Anything else? All right, I'll close the meeting.
thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Scott.
all for your efforts.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was
Hey,
making such a mess out of all the
Dave?
pages. I did.
Dave,
Yeah.
did you get copies of the